When I was 9 years old, I developed migraine headaches and uncontrollable shaking, primarily in my hands. It was 1979. I was in the 4th grade, and I needed to be able to hold a pencil in my hand in order to take notes and complete my assignments. We didn't have computers back then, and it had gotten really hard. The headaches would come on like a freight train out of nowhere and flatten me. I would alternate between being too hot and too cold until, after suffering miserably for what seemed like hours and hours, I would eventually vomit. And then I could sleep off the rest of the headache until it passed. I wanted the headaches to stop. I wanted the shaking to go away. But what I wished most of all was that I could just be a regular kid like my peers. Well, at first, the doctors didn't know what was going on, but after a series of tests and CAT scans, eventually, I was given a diagnosis and a prognosis. I was told that I had something called Sydenham's chorea. Rare back then, not entirely common now, but related to what we know as pandas, and similarly believed to be from an undiagnosed strep throat. My mother was told that I had a chronic, progressive, debilitating neurological condition, and that my symptoms would worsen, and I would need to be put on morphine, and that I would die prematurely. And so, like many moms before and since facing what seems like terrible odds, she rejected this fate and refused to believe it. She marched me from doctor's office to doctor's office to doctor's office looking for an alternative fate, until finally, at last, we landed in an allergist's office. They saved my life. He had me keep a food journal and record what I was eating and how I felt, what I was surrounding myself with, what I was doing, and also he tested me. It turned out I was wildly allergic to my environment and my surroundings. I was off the charts allergic to dust, danders, molds, mites, pollens, trees, grasses, my cats, my dog, and also my diet. So he crafted a removal plan to get rid of what we could, to remove things from my diet: no corn, no refined sugar, no gluten, and also gave me a tincture protocol to build up some of my tolerance to the things we would not be able to remove. Within 2 weeks of following this protocol, my symptoms went away completely. No more headaches, no more shakes. I became just another 4th grader. And here I am, decades later, no longer uncommonly allergic to my environment. I have a family and kids. We live a pretty normal life. We even have a dog. Okay, so right about now, you're thinking that this talk is about a little girl who overcame the odds somewhat miraculously, but it's not. This talk is about each and every one of you and things you encounter daily, chemicals, and what you can do about it. There are over 84,000 chemicals in use today. It's estimated that about 700 are added to the marketplace each year, most with insufficient, if any, prior market testing. Some of these chemicals are harmful. They've been found to alter the way our hormones function, to change how they work, and in so doing, mess with our own body processes and then spur disease. And despite that fact, these chemicals have been proliferating since the 1950s. And we produce them in high production quantities, churning out millions of pounds of these chemicals a year. I'm talking about chemicals like phthalates and bisphenols. Those are plasticizing chemicals. I'm talking about pesticides. I'm talking about flame retardants. And also a category known as the PFAS, or per and polyfluorinated chemicals and chemistries. Where do these show up? Aside from saying everywhere, they're in your car and your carpet, your furniture and your fashion. They're in your pots and pans and plastics and personal care. Hey, they're even in some dental floss. Sadly, we've all been exposed, and this needs to change. Fortunately, there are some things you can do about it, and I'm going to tell you about some of that. But first, I want to take a look at how this plays out in daily life, how these chemical exposures can actually be correlated with diseases, with chronic conditions that Americans in particular suffer from. Take cancer. We know that nobody escapes cancer's reach, that in the US, it's chronic and rampant, and it impacts 1 in 3 people who will be diagnosed with cancer in their lifetime. Nearly 1 in 4 people will die from it. And certain cancers are spurred by these endocrine active chemicals. The CDC estimates that 20% of all cancers are environmentally caused. But it's not just cancers related to environmental causes. Globally, nearly 1/4 of deaths could be prevented if we simply reduced environmental exposures. Now, I'm not saying that all of these environmental exposures are due to harmful chemicals, but imagine if we could curb or curtail the ones that are associated with it, because it has correlations to diabetes, which is the 7th largest killer in the US, with obesity, which impacts nearly half adults in the US, with metabolic disorders. It's also associated with neurologic and behavioral changes, including loss of IQ, ADHD, and so many more things like Alzheimer's and Parkinson's and early onset puberty and even fertility. So get this, 1 in 8 couples in the United States struggle with infertility, and they're told that it's idiopathic or inexplicable, meaning the doctors don't know why. And yet, the scientists and the doctors who are actually studying these hormone hijacking chemicals will tell you that it's because of exposures to these specific chemicals. And furthermore, that if you are exposed at what's known as a specific window of development, that exposure doesn't just impact you, it can be carried as many as 4 generations down the line. So when you look at fertility in this country and around the globe, while these chemicals have been proliferating, our fecundity has fizzled. And in fact, we've lost 50% of our fertility in the last 50 years. I want to say that again a different way because this is really important. I want to make sure you're getting the gravity here. Humans have evolved for hundreds of thousands of years. And suddenly, in the last half a century, we've reduced our collective fertility by 1% a year. When you forecast that decline over the coming decades, I gotta tell you, things do not bode well for the human race unless we do something about these exposures. What I'm trying to tell you, my friends, is the house is on fire. And we are fighting a blaze of chronic diseases when we need to also be managing harmful chemicals. Okay, so this is the part of the talk where everybody's like, can I leave without her noticing? And I want to say to you, I have some ideas and things I'm going to share with you that I've learned through my work, specifically to help you combat this in your own life. So it's really important to know that the scientists studying these endocrine active chemicals have a message. It is concise and it is clear. Prevention and avoidance are the best medicine. Every single thing that you can remove is a win for your body, because in this toxic age that we live in, where we have made all kinds of rapid advancements, have added these chemicals that our bodies have never before had to process, ever, in eternity. They never existed on this planet, so we've got to give our bodies a break. We have to be able to help them, and prevention and avoidance is the way in which we can do that. Okay, 5 things I would urge you to do starting right now, because while more research is absolutely warranted, we know enough to take action starting today. I would urge you to 1, eat consciously. What I mean by that is eat real food, not chemicals, not junk, not heavily processed foods. Make it organic whenever you can. 2, educate yourself on these chemicals. I started an organization called Made Safe, where we help to expose people to the education needed to learn about these chemicals and environmental exposures and how they play on your body. We even devised a way for companies to come and learn about their chemicals sufficiently prior to going to market. You can go visit us and learn how to begin at madesafe.org. 3, write to your legislators at the local, state, and federal level and demand protective chemical legislation. 4, vote with your dollars. It matters where you spend your money. Either research online or write in, ask companies, what are they doing about their chemical policy? Are they transparent? Do they have one? Are they assessing these things before putting them into the products? And 5, share this information widely to anyone who will listen. Because when we act, we are protecting ourselves, our bodies, our minds, our children, and future generations. I was exposed, and I'm different because of it. Now you've been exposed. I hope you will be different too. Thank you.